Welcome to Triple Play Fantasy, your weekly fantasy football show. We're getting you ready for week 8, so stay tuned. Everyone, this is Zach at FF Triple Batman, and I am joined today by the great Doc at Trip Play Fantasy. How's it going today, Doc?
Going all right, Zach. I'm curious if you actually know my real name.
Yeah, I know it's Eric.
Okay, I knew it was, but just good banter.
I literally have your name in my phone as Eric, not Doc.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Like, why are you texting your doc at Wednesday at 2:30?
Got fantasy questions for him. But for those of you who are not watching baseball, we appreciate it because it is still football season. So
It's basketball season. It's opening night for the NBA.
That's true. You might also be watching basketball. This is tough.
Hockey's back too.
Yeah, I'm a Caps fan. Hockey's not back this season. It's been rough. But yeah, so if you are watching live, we appreciate it. If you're not watching live, we appreciate you watching it afterwards. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, because this is AAA Fantasy, so we still have you covered for basketball. We got you covered for baseball. We don't really do hockey, sorry. But maybe we will if we get enough interest. So check that out. But let's just get right into reviewing week 7. It'll be real brief. Just touch on it real quick. What's your one takeaway from week 7?
So you know how sometimes when you stream defenses, you're just looking about picking against an opposing offense, right? We need to start throwing the Raiders in that conversation of streaming defenses against the Raiders. The Raiders have scored 20 or more points once this season, and they've played 7 games. That was 21 points against the Patriots. But their point totals, 17, 10, 18, 17, 17, 21, 12. They're either going to have a non-mobile Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback or Brian Hoyer. They could be in sell mode if they trade Devontae Adams. And Josh Jacobs is a shell of himself from last season. So you look at the next 3 weeks, they have the Lions, which are probably rostered, but the Giants, Jets, Raiders, Dolphins. So if you're in a position where you can look forward and maybe you aren't set at a defensive or special teams, I'd look at who's ever streaming the Raiders.
No, that's fair. And I mean, even with Jimmy G coming back, he's not going to take the offense to another level. He's been just as bad as their backups.
I said that was one of the worst signings, like 3 years, $60 million. I hammered all of his unders because I knew he wouldn't stay healthy.
Has he ever?
No. And that's the thing, is he's in a less creative scheme with worse offensive linemen.
Yeah. And as much as I love Josh Jacobs as a player, and I love all of his opportunities, it's been brutal. I mean, I think going into last week, he might have led all running backs in opportunities per game. He had like, I think 23.5, which is insane. And that's in fantasy football, we tell you to chase volume. But unfortunately, like, they're just not getting close enough to the end zone to really feel like he's going to bring you what you need.
They essentially have 2.5 weapons on offense. Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and I say half of Jacoby Myers. But if you don't have chemistry, like, there is such a lack of chemistry on that team. Zach, I was really big on Josh Jacobs last season. I preferred him over Saquon, and the receipts on Twitter say that. I was fading him completely this year because even with the volume, you were drafting him based off of if he could do anything remotely as close as last year.
Yeah, no, I was all on Josh Jacobs last year, so that was great for me. And I definitely faded him this year because of his contract situation and holding out. And I figured he'd have to get off to a slow start, which he has. But it's just that offense is not doing what you want it to do. And
we say this, but it's crazy. They're 3-4.
Yeah. But I mean, you could say the same thing about, I mean, what are the Steelers? Are they 4-2?
Don't bring up the Steelers, man. I picked the Rams in my survivor pool.
But are the Steelers 4-2? Am I crazy? Is that what it was?
The Steelers are, I want to say, they are 4-2.
Like how insane is that? How like their offense looks horrible. They haven't had. I think I saw a stat. They haven't had 350 yards of offense and since like 2020 or something crazy like that. Like it's like 53 games. I think it's now 54 games. Yet they're finding ways to win. I mean that's all on Tomlin, and he's not going to win Coach of the Year yet. He really should.
Ooh, that's a spicy take.
And I'm not a Steelers fan whatsoever, but I feel like he gets overlooked too many times. The fact that he has never had a losing season with some of those teams he's put out there, not his fault, and that to me that's coaching. But my one takeaway from Week 7, we've talked too much about Week 7 because it's already in the past. But long-term success is process over results for fantasy football, and by that I mean focus on talent over predicting game script because there's so much variance week to week. I mean, who saw the 49ers losing to the Vikings? I mean, you're a 49ers fan, so you just assume you're going to blow it. But nobody saw that coming. I mean, we all thought Ayuk had a great matchup. He's talented, so you want to keep playing. He didn't work out for you. You got to keep playing those kind of plays. Whereas there's other guys that are just going to go off randomly. You can't predict it. You can't chase those random boom bust plays. You really got to focus on, like we talked about, volume before, and really focus on talent. Because if you keep playing your talented players, they're going to hit more than they're going to miss. They're still going to miss. So overall, you're going to come out hopefully positive by the end of the season. But if you keep trying to chase it, you're going to keep missing it every time. And that's when your team's just your record is going to be terrible. You're not making the playoffs.
Boom bust is for DFS. You know, that's when you do want to chase those guys. Like, I agree with you, Zach. A lot of these guys you probably took in higher rounds. So are you going to bench people that you spent high draft capital on?
Yeah, and there's we completely whiffed on some guys, and I get it. And those guys, you just got to sniff it out and bench them or drop them. And then there's some guys who had Puka Nacua as good as he's going to be. So if you got him, if you drafted him super late or you picked him up, you're starting him every week now because he's shown his talent. But there's other players that like Gabe Davis. He's had flashes in the pan, but you can't reliably start him every week. You can't chase that. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying like we try to get too fancy sometimes. We're like, oh, this is a great matchup, game script. He's gonna get a lot of touches. They're gonna great all this stuff, and it doesn't work out. They're not.
You count
Gabe
Davis as a fancy player?
I count him as we game script him too much.
So let me give you a couple names, and you'll tell me if you'll start him over Gabe Davis. Christian Watson.
No, but I've never been a Christian Watson person.
Okay. Let me think. I would say Jordan Addison, but he had a good game yesterday. Tyler Lockett, I would start over.
But he's had a rough season so far. But yeah, but he's a great example of like
DeAndre Hopkins.
He's still talented. Hopkins, I don't want to touch that offense.
So you would take Gabe Davis over him?
In that situation, yes.
Because Gabe Davis has 4 touchdowns this year. He has a 92-yard game, a 100-yard game.
The good thing for him is his 4 touchdowns have come in 4 separate games. So he looks
exactly
like he's done really well for you. But if you really dig into it, he hasn't had that many really actual good games like that you can like bank on. But yeah, but he's one of those where like he's in the middle.
I needed him to get a touchdown this week. We're just bringing up a lot of sore subjects.
Sorry. But we'll move on to week 8. So let's talk about bye weeks real quick. Great news. There are none. We went from 6 to 0. Love the NFL schedule. Don't get too excited though, because when you look at the week 10, there's only 4 teams for week 10. I know we're skipping ahead, but week 10, go ahead and check out those teams that are on bye. 3 out of 4, you're not going to enjoy having to bench those players. So good luck. Get ready for week 10. But let's go on to injury update. I'm just going to go through a few players, and then we'll kind of talk about how it relates to fantasy for a few of them. Jalen Hurts has a knee issue. We have no idea the severity. We're hoping he keeps playing. He had to wear a brace. We don't know what's going on. Deshaun Watson's shoulder. Before we recorded this, it came out that structurally everything still looks good. Still working on range of motion and strength and all that stuff. Who knows if he's playing this week? We have no idea. Jerome Ford, high ankle sprain. He's going to be out at least a few weeks. Bijan Robinson apparently had headaches the night before the game. They kind of played him, kind of didn't play him. Really weird to put him in with 33 seconds left in the game. But unless he's out, you're probably starting Bijan Robinson. We'll get there. Christian Watson feels like he's always hurt. He's got a knee issue. Prognosis is positive, but we still don't know this early in the week. Jalen Waddle had a back issue, took him out on Sunday. He seems like he's been banged up a lot this season. We don't know if he'll be ready to return. Luke Musgrave, an ankle injury. Wouldn't shock me if he misses, but too early to tell. Gerald Everett had a quad issue. You're probably not playing Gerald Everett anyway. And then Zach Ertz. He also had a quad issue, which we just found out he got put on IR today. So just a quick pick up Trey McBride. If you're watching this live, you got waivers still, go get McBride. So I want to
Zach
ask
took
you,
and lost in one of his leagues to keep Trey McBride. So lead by example, Zach.
Yeah, it didn't feel good, but I already knew I was going to lose, so I didn't want to drop him. So it worked out. Still lost. But at least I have Trey McBride now. So with the Browns, is there anyone on the Browns that you can start right now with not knowing if Watson's playing, PJ Walker, Jerome Ford's now out? I mean, Kareem Hunt's been banged up.
So I'd say you're starting Amari Cooper and you're playing Kareem Hunt in deep leagues. I'd say a 14-team league, you fire up Kareem
Pierre
Hunt.
Strong out-touched him.
Yeah, but Kareem Hunt got the goal line carries.
Yeah, but he's a little banged up too. I'm curious to see.
That's assuming that he's healthy. I know he has the quad issue. Like, for example, I'm in a guillotine league, and I might have to start Kareem Hunt. There's 11 people left, and, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 flexes, where they're just going to get at least somewhat of a workload. Like that running back room has a little bit more clarity because it'll just be Kareem Hunt and Pierre Strong rather than like the Rams and who is going to get touches there. Or if anybody besides CMC is going to get touches on the 49ers and you're thinking about playing Mitchell or Jordan Mason or Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah. I don't feel good about starting Amari Cooper. I don't feel good if you have to start Kareem Hunt, David Njoku. Like, I'm not inspired to touch any Browns right now until we get some clarity. Because PJ Walker, no offense to him, props to him for being in the NFL, but he's not a good quarterback. And until Deshaun Watson's shoulder is ever good, whatever we're talking about his shoulder, I mean, he looked terrible while he was still in. So we'll see. But I don't feel good about my Browns. So Bijan Robinson, we mentioned he had a unexpected off week where he barely played. If he's active, though, I'm assuming you have to start him every week.
Yeah, I would have advised to not bet on him like I did. I would stay away from props, but you spent a first-round pick on him, and he's shown explosiveness. The one thing about fantasy, and Zach, you kind of touched about it earlier, is the unpredictability. You have to play your studs because when Bijan does get touches, and he's been getting around 12 to 14 a game, he's made the most of them. I think the Falcons are going to be under more scrutiny for not disclosing that in the injury report. So I would think that they kind of would be on their, quote unquote, best behavior with Bijan the rest of the year.
Yeah. It's shocking to me too. He doesn't have a rushing touchdown yet.
No.
He has a receiving touchdown. He doesn't have
Desmond Ridder has more rushing touchdowns than him.
Yeah. So does Algier.
The Algier is a little bit of a given. Zach, I was thinking about this the other day. There might not be a team where more fantasy players are picked, but there is more frustration in the history of football. Like, you probably spent an early round pick on Drake London. Obviously, Kyle Pitts was a later redraft pick, but a huge dynasty asset. Same with Bijan. All of these guys that are really hyped up.
Well, this is what happened. All 3 of them were drafted in the top 10 of the NFL draft.
Yes.
So why would you not want to take them in fantasy?
Exactly. And then their backups are playing more than them. Matt Collins outsnapped Drake London in week 1.
Yeah, it's been insane. Look at
I've never seen this before. We might not ever see it again. It's incompetent.
No. Yeah, it's crazy. Yet they're still winning. So there's the NFC South for you. And then my last one I want to touch on injury-wise, we mentioned him earlier with an example, is Christian Watson. Is there anyone on the Packers that you can start right now? Because I don't feel good about that offense at all.
Honestly, A.J. Dillon in a deeper league, I wouldn't even start Aaron Jones because he's been playing limited snaps, and you never know if the hamstring will act up again.
We need to see him have at least one good week before we can put him back in our starting lineup.
Yeah. That offense has been stagnant. I wouldn't, like I said, A.J. Dillon in a 12-team league, I would start at a flex. That's probably it.
Yeah, we talked about it. I remember week 3, we talked about how Jordan Love had got off to a great start, and I mentioned that he had some great defensive matchups, and he really didn't look that good. He was just throwing touchdowns, and then he started playing some tougher defenses. There's more tape on him now, and
I was going to say there's more tape.
yeah, he's throwing it deep, but he is not accurate deep, and it just doesn't look good. That offense is struggling. The offensive line issue. I mean, Bakhtiari's done for the season. They've just been hit hard. It's hard to trust anybody on that offense. So moving off the injuries, let's make you some money, hopefully. Do you have a favorite bet for week 8?
Zach, I wanted to try to find another one, but I love the Falcons minus 2.5 at Tennessee for minus 110. With Tennessee, we don't even know who's starting at quarterback right now, assuming it's Malik Willis. I read a stat the other day that if he started a full 16-game season, he would be on pace to be the most sacked quarterback in a season. And that's beating Sam Howell, who right now is on pace to get sacked, I think, 96 times, they said. So the Falcons coming off a great win on the road. The Titans are tanking right now. Who's to say that the trade deadline is a week from today? Who's to say before the weekend they don't limit somebody's touches or trade somebody so that they can maximize their value? But I want to say I've been wrong on my bets recently, and I've been cold. I feel better that you like this.
Yeah, no, I put that down as mine as well, and I love the Titans uniforms for this week, and maybe I'm hoping that gets people a little overconfident on the Titans. But to me, Atlanta minus 2.5. I mean, that just feels like easy money. And I know no bet is easy money, and we just talked about how frustrating that offense is. They're still winning. They're still their defense is solid, not great, but solid. But I mean, the Titans have a solid defense. That offense is atrocious right now. So even Derrick Henry feels like he's lost a step. That offensive line is not helping him. Yeah, give me the Falcons. I still have a field goal still covers me. Like it's 2.5. It's
Money
not even
line is
3.5.
minus one. Money line is minus 130.
Yeah, it's crazy. We do have a question. Thank you, Josh, for tuning in. So we have: would you trade Russ and Shaheed for Burrow? It's a 20-man PPR. His roster is Russ, JT, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, Kmet, Jacoby Myers. So he's got some solid guys. 20-man PPR. So I'm assuming.
I would.
Yeah, I'm assuming your quarterbacks are a big deal in this kind of league. We've talked about 1 QB leagues before, how they don't really matter. In a 20-man roster or league, it does matter. Yeah, I have no issue trading Russ and Shaheed for Burrow. Absolutely.
It
Burrow's
sounds like
huge
Shaheed
upgrade.
is your it sounds like Shaheed is your fourth wide receiver. And the thing with Russ, like we talk about the uncertainty with Burrow's injury, and that's a risk that you're taking, which is probably why you can even get him for this price. But there is a chance that Russ gets benched at the end of the season.
There's a chance Russ gets benched next week.
You think that early?
I don't think it could happen. I'm just saying there's a chance. It's not an absolute zero.
What percentages would you say Russell Wilson gets benched next week?
Who do they have this week? Who are they playing?
They are
playing. When is their bye?
Kansas City, I believe.
Oh, they're gonna get spanked by Kansas City.
They're playing Kansas City in Denver.
Yeah, I could see. Maybe he doesn't get benched for like a whole week. I could see him getting benched in game. Which is just as bad.
That's protecting your investments. All right, so they have Chiefs this week, then at Bills after their bye, then Vikings and Browns at home.
It wouldn't shock me if they come out of their bye week and he's not the starter.
What odds?
I would put it at right now at least. We'll give it 33%. It's a 1/3.
Ooh, you should tweet that out, Zach.
I'm not a spicy person like that. I'll save it.
No,
you gotta come.
you
You gotta come watch the show for these kind of hot takes.
No, you should.
But yeah, but for Josh, to me, I feel like you're not risking anything. Burrow is worth the risk, and you look like you struggling at running back, which this trade doesn't impact you, and you look like you're set at wide receiver, and this trade is not going to hurt your wide receiver depth. So I like the trade for you. All right. If there's any more questions, go ahead and put that in YouTube or Facebook. Unfortunately, Twitter or X doesn't allow us to take those questions or see them at least. All right. So we covered our favorite bet. We had the same one. I like it, which means the Titans are going to stomp the Falcons, which sucks, but I feel like it's a good bet. Now on to my favorite segment, real and spectacular or fake. So for those of you who don't watch Seinfeld, which both of us love Seinfeld, you'll understand the reference. But basically, do you believe in what I'm telling you, or do you think it is fake? So the first statement, Brees Hall is currently RB19 in PPR. That's a fact. He will finish the season as a top 12 running back. Is that real and spectacular or fake?
I'll say real and spectacular because of the volume. We thought it was going to be, maybe a 50-50. We'll say 60-40 timeshare with Dalvin Cook. Obviously, the Jets offense has looked much different going into week 8 than we thought when the season started. It's crazy to think it's already been 7 weeks since Aaron Rodgers, or 6 weeks since he tore his Achilles. But yeah, he's been getting more volume each week. And barring injury, he has the explosiveness to be a top 12 running back.
Yeah, no, I think it's real spectacular. Even if he comes up short, you're going to start him every week going forward. He's got much better matchups. We always knew he had a tough, first 6 weeks, and he had to bye. They were rough matchups. He was coming off his injury. Honestly, he looked way better way sooner than I expected. And I have him in my home league. I can't wait to get to play him the rest of the season. It feels like a little bias after I said it like that. But, I mean, I liked him if I didn't even have him on my team. But for me, he just looks explosive, and that's what we were afraid of, and he's already proven he can do it. There's not a whole lot going on that offense outside of him because Zach Wilson is hit or miss going to Garrett Wilson, which is great when he does, but it feels like their best chance to put up points, which is what they're trying to do with they have a great defense. They've shown if they can just score a little bit, they can win some tight matchups. So I'm liking Brees Hall, and I could easily see him getting in the top 12, assuming – again, we're always going to assume health with these kind of questions. So assuming he stays healthy, which I can't say he's going to get hurt. I can't say he's going to stay healthy, so I'm going to go with top 12. All right. My next one. Calvin Ridley is wide receiver 37 in PPR after being the wide receiver 6 in week 1. So real and spectacular fake, he is cooked and only flex worthy the rest of the season.
I think that's fake, and it's crazy to say he would be cooked because he just had time off for personal issues / gambling rather than an injury. Calvin Ridley has had 8 or more targets in 4 out of the 7 games. He had 7 in one of those games. He's had a couple of dud weeks. He hasn't gotten in the end zone since week 4, and he only has 1 other touchdown on the season. I think it's just he's going to have some boom weeks. We've seen it week 1. He is going to have some bust weeks. I think there is more volatility with Calvin Ridley than we thought entering the year, but I think he can still give you a low-end wide receiver 1 any given week.
Cool. I'm going to agree with my statement of it's real and spectacular, and I'm also going to agree with my statement that it's fake. And I'm playing both sides on this in the fact that he is, I think, to me, wide receiver 3 flex worthy going forward, but that doesn't mean you can't start him. So I think he's gotten to the point where Christian Kirk to me is the wide receiver 1 on that team. Travis Etienne has been scoring like crazy. He's not going to keep up that pace, but it's been insane. Trevor Lawrence looks solid, but not great yet. They've had some tough matchups. He should have some better matchups coming up, but it's hard for me to start him and trust him. So if you are only starting 2 wide receivers and you have a better flex option, whether it's a running back or another wide receiver, I have no problem with you benching Calvin Ridley. To me, he's more in that wide receiver 3 territory. So depending on your league setup, that could mean he's a starter for you every week because you have to start 3 plus another flex or 2. Or maybe you are able to bench him. So that's why I'm kind of playing the middle there, where I wouldn't say he's cooked, but I also don't think he is the wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 we were hoping he was going to be after that week 1 performance.
That's fair.
All right. And the last statement, Mark Andrews is tight end 2 in points per game at 15.6. He's behind Travis Kelce, no shocker there, at 20.8. So basically a 5-point difference, which is pretty significant points per game. Andrews has been the better value this season based on ADP since he was drafted 2 rounds later than Kelce. Is that real and spectacular, or is that fake?
We're talking normal scoring, not Scott Fishbowl scoring, right?
No, normal, just PPR scoring.
I would say that's real and spectacular. And, obviously every draft is different. In a non-PPR league, Travis Kelce went second in a 12-team league. I saw him go as high as 4 and 5 in other drafts. It was his pre-ankle sprain week 1. But Mark Andrews, you could probably get in the 3rd round this year.
Mhm.
He has at least 5 targets in every game. Zach, I heard this stat on Get Up from RG3 today that Lamar got the most yak from his pass catchers or / running backs, 196, than any other game in his career. And now the Ravens offense is finally kind of clicking what we thought it would from a passing perspective, where he can throw 364 through the air and 3 touchdowns, and it's not reliant on his legs as much.
Yeah. And I think it's real spectacular too. And I know it sounds crazy when both of us are saying Andrews is more valuable than Kelsey, but what we're saying is he's more valuable at his ADP cost. So we're looking at a 1st round pick or a 3rd round pick, basically, at standard ADPs from consensus ADPs. And think about who you could have taken in the 1st round if you didn't take Kelsey. So Tyreek Hill was up around there, who's gone off. AJ Brown was up there, who's gone off. I mean, there's plenty of guys you could have gotten and then had Mark Andrews. Or you take Travis Kelsey, and then how many misses have we had in round 3 so far this season during ADP? Like, there's a lot of wide receivers we thought were going to be good, and some running backs that just have not hit yet. A lot of those wide receivers like Waddle, Higgins, Devontae Smith.
Pittman to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of them were coming up in round 3. So that's why I feel like he is more valuable. Now that 5 points per game difference is insane. Like, that's insane. Like, when you really, it's almost a touchdown difference. So they're both helping you win. So there's no disagreement there that Kelsey's been amazing. He's a rock star. I'm just saying that if you look at who, like, if we put 2 players together with Andrews, let's give you Andrews and AJ Brown, or Kelsey and
Waddle.
T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins been hurt. We'll go with Waddle. He's played most of the season. He's banged up here or there. But yeah, you're going to pick the Andrews side. So that's why I feel like he is more valuable from an ADP standpoint, which that seems crazy.
Lamar Jackson has ran the ball 69 times this year, and he has one
Nice.
carry for more or 20, one carry for 20 or more yards, which means a lot of them are scampers to get 1st downs, or he's going out of bounds. We don't see him run for 50 or 60 yards that he used to, which means that he's passing the ball more on offense. And I think that's what we've really seen Andrews have the consistency, because Andrews used to be a little bit touchdown dependent.
Yep.
And I think
let's be honest, most tight ends are.
Yeah.
We got another question before I go to our next segment. So, John Sr., appreciate you watching. Hope all is well. You too. Someone offered me Puka for Waddle. So, one is this PPR scoring, because honestly, that does kind of make a little difference. But it also depends on what the rest of your team looks like, what's your record. But
this Zach. I'm not going to let you get out of this one. This is receiver for receiver.
It sounds crazy. I'm taking Puka.
Let me see the upcoming matchup for they play.
I mean, Waddle's got a back injury right now. We don't know how severe it is. Backs don't just heal overnight. Even if he can play, he's going to be.
Have the Rams had their bye week? This is going to.
I don't know.
This is going to be the deciding factor for me. They have not, because I was going to say Rams had their bye week, and you were going to get one more week out of Puka than you were at Waddle. I would have said for sure. I'm still going to take Waddle barely because of that offense.
I get what you're saying, and that's why I hesitated. But for me, I'm not even a big Puka person. Like, I see people, especially on like Twitter, that are just like Puka crazy, which I'm happy for them. He's doing great. He proved me wrong, but I don't know. Like, if Waddle didn't have a back injury, I feel like it'd be an easy Waddle for me. That back injury scares me. He's been banged up too much, and like I said, back spasms, back tightness, all that, like, that just doesn't go away.
He has such a good floor, though. He has such a good floor, though.
Does he?
I'll read his game log. 4 for 78, 4 for 86, 4 for 46, 5 for 35 and a touchdown on 10 targets, 7 for 51 and a touchdown on 9 targets, 6 for 63. That's a good floor. Right.
Now read Puka.
Okay. But my point was, his value is also tied to Stafford, who I think is more susceptible to injury. Obviously, you could say concussions with Tua. I don't think that's as much longer or going to affect him this season. But I think with Stafford, if he gets hurt, that's Puka's value.
But
And
you
I
can
know
say the same thing
Puka's
about Tua with Waddle. If anybody starting QB gets hurt, they're done. Like, to me, Stafford has not looked old this season like he did last year.
Who are you more worried about from a non-concussion injury standpoint, Stafford or Tua?
Honestly, it's the same to me because all it takes is one hit.
Okay. Well, I'm more concerned about Stafford, so that's why I would go Waddle. But I can't blame, this is what's good about having two people on the show is I think both sides are valid, except for Zach's.
I would
Just
say
messing, just
it's a
messing.
fair trade. The fact that we're both splitting it, and that's why you're asking this question. So we appreciate you coming on. And I'm sorry we didn't help you in the fact that one of us said one thing and one of us said the complete opposite. But I think that just shows you that it's a fair trade. So you have to make that decision. It's your team. It's not ours. What is your gut telling you? And do you believe this trade makes your team better? And if you can't say yes, then don't make the trade. And if you like the trade and you feel good about it, then go for it. Whether it's you're agreeing with me or agreeing with Doc. That's how I look at trades and anyone's fantasy team is. At some point, if it's fair, it's even, go with your gut. But we appreciate you watching and getting your question on here. So we will go to the last. No, we got two more segments. We got who are you eating off your roster? So who are you kicking to the curb?
I shouldn't have had him on any rosters because, I had a lapse in moral judgment. But Deshaun Watson, I wouldn't even say he's a bench spot at this point. And I say this as he's owned in 75.1% of ESPN leagues. And even if you're hoping that this shoulder issue goes away, Deshaun Watson is QB 32 on the year. I know he has missed 2 games, but he has every reason to not play. That contract was fully guaranteed. And props for the Ravens, and I don't say this often because I dislike the Ravens, for putting their foot down and not one-upping that, because that is arguably now the worst contract in the history of sports if it plays out the rest like we're assuming it will. But yeah, with Deshaun Watson, I know he had 2 20-point fantasy games earlier this year, but that team is banged up, and you can feel better about yourself at the end of the day.
Fair enough. You would have thought this player was already yeeted, but he's just so hard to quit, but he's got to be yeeted. It's Jahan Dotson. He's still 54% rostered on Sleeper, so over half of you out there won't let him go. Wide receiver 61 in PPR. His best finish. So this is his best week. Wide receiver 28 in week 4 with 12.7 PPR points. And that's just because he had a touchdown that week.
He had his most yardage this week. That's an interesting time you're yeeting him.
Well, okay. I'm glad you asked that because I'm going to ask a question to you.
Okay.
How many times do you think he's had more than 30 yards this season? More than 30 yards.
Oh, that's cheating because I have it up right now.
Correct. But what would you have thought if you didn't see that?
I would have said twice.
Okay.
He's had it 3 times.
No, he's had it twice.
He's 30 or more?
30 or more. More than 30. Sorry.
Okay.
Than 30. He had 31 times. So more than 30.
Okay. Yeah, I would have said twice.
Yeah, but his high, like you said, was last week, 43 yards. What are you doing with that? He has 1 touchdown on the season.
So to me, that's somebody that I would throw in as a sweetener on a trade.
You can try to throw him on a trade, but you might not have time.
Okay, so this is the perfect example. That person would probably, if the guy that asked the question, Josh, before, hadn't said Russ and Shaheed, and he had said, hey, I'll give you Russ and Jahan Dotson, that's a perfect sweetener. Because I think he's getting scooped up right away. And if it was the game before, or I won't even say the game before because he had 1 target, but the game before that against the Bears on Thursday night where he went 3 for 30 on 5 targets, okay, I'm a little bit more fine yeeting him. But he had a second season high in targets with 8 and a season high in yardage. And I'm not saying 43 is something to brag about, but I'm saying it's trending in the right direction.
I'd rather just drop him off my team, let someone else pick him up, and you can put him in your starting lineup and get nothing from him again.
All right, wait, Zach. Let's have a friendly bet because you're getting ready to go on a cruise. Let's bet each other's next drink at the bar.
Okay.
All right. What would you set his yardage at this week, Mr. Pessimist?
Who are they playing this week? That's how bad I don't
Philly. They're playing Philly.
Oh, Philly.
When he played Philly this year earlier, he had 27 yards.
So, you know what? Let's set it. He's going to set a new high this season at over 43 yards.
No, you got to give me some value on there.
How's that
let me find his season average. And
His
I'll
season
include the
average
game.
has to be like 27 yards.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up while we go to the next segment. I'm gonna pull up what his average would be right now.
All right. I mean, you seem so
All right,
sure that he's
so
trending in the right direction. How is he not going to beat 43 yards?
all right, so he is averaging right now 23.14 yards
I
per game.
oversold him.
I'll bump that up to 27, or I'll give you 30. 30, because that's the number you brought up. 30 will say it's null, less than 30. You owe me a drink. And
That's
next
literally
time,
that could be one big play from him. I will
exactly.
give you 40. I'll give you 40.
It sounds like you're scared.
I'm not scared. I'm just saying that's just not smart betting because it only takes one play.
I don't know if I'll do it for 40, but I hope he does.
All right. We'll talk about it after the show then. But yeah, that proves my point that he's averaging 23 yards.
Gosh, I hope he gets an 80-yard play, the 80-yard touchdown, the first play of the game. You might have to block my number and find.
And I'd be happy for him. But let's be honest, no one's starting him, so it doesn't even matter. But let's go to your favorite segment, random tight end touchdown of the week. We haven't hit yet. It was just National Tight End Day this past week, which you would have thought we would have hit it, but all the big names got it. So now it's time for the little guys. The week after National Tight End Day. Who is scoring a touchdown this week?
All right. So for me, I think that this is the one. I am saying Durham Smythe, and I might change it by the end of this segment after I do a little bit more research.
He caught my eye.
But Dolphins Patriots have an over under of 47, which is the second highest of the weekend. He has one target over the last 3 weeks, but he had 15 over the first 4. So I think New England takes Tyreek Hill away, and I think Durham Smythe sneaks in for a touchdown.
All right, I like it. My random tight end touchdown of the week is going to Tommy Tremble. And for those of you who don't know who that is, he's on Carolina Panthers. He's got a good matchup this week versus Houston. He just came off a bye week. The week before his bye week, he had a season-high snap share of 45%. This is why it's a random tight end touchdown. 2 targets, also a season high. 2 receptions from those 2 targets, season high. And 25 yards, you bet it, a season high. And
that's what I'm saying. He's on the upward.
He's due. The week before that, week 5, he had a 1-yard touchdown catch from his only target. The 1-1-1 stat line that we love to see. So he is my random tight end touchdown of the week. Book it.
You know what? I don't know if this is. I kind of like Cody Parkinson. I'm going to switch it.
All right, on the fly.
It's a tinkering. It's a Cody Parkinson week.
All right, let's see.
It probably won't be. I should just be betting the unders on all of these touchdowns.
Absolutely. The odds wouldn't actually even be good. You'd have to do a massive random tight end parlay to get even decent odds. But that's okay. That'd actually be really funny to do a massive parlay and below it because someone actually did get a random touchdown.
That's a Seinfeld. You ever seen that Twitter account, like 21st Century Seinfeld?
Yep. George
loses a parlay because he bets on a bunch of tight ends to not get touchdowns and one accidentally scores.
Yeah. I kind of want you to do it now, but let's put $5.
I'll have to think of like 15 random tight ends just to get some value
that you actually get odds on. No, I love that. But that is the end of our show. We appreciate the ones that were able to watch it when they weren't watching baseball or hockey or basketball. We appreciate you. If you're watching this not live, make sure you go ahead, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Like I said, we got you covered with lots of sports, but obviously we're focused on football on this show. So we appreciate you all. Good luck. I will not be here next week. As Doc mentioned, I will be celebrating Halloween in the middle of the Caribbean on a cruise ship. So the guys will hold it down for me. Yeah. Hey, gotta take the family out, have a good time. So I will be off the grid, which will be great. I'm excited. So thank you all for holding it down for me. Can't wait to be back to talk week 10. That's crazy that we're already talking week 10. So let's get through week 8 first. Let's go win some money. Let's go win some matchups. And I will see you all for week 10, but Doc's got you for week 9. So thank you all. Have a great night. And if you're watching this live, have a great day.